you ready? All right, we're gonna get started. Welcome to our workshop meeting that we have monthly for the Springfield Township Board of Commissioners. And the way it typically works, this is more of an informal make the sausages kind of deal. We don't take any official action on items. We'll do that Wednesday at our business meeting. And we have everyone except Commissioner Cobb. We are expecting him to come. Do we have any Zoom attendees, Craig?
Yes.
Right. And we typically start with matters for our engineer, so we'll do that now. And then when he's done, he can skedaddle. I know what some of you are here for, but I'll poll the audience before we start. Make sure we hit what you're here for first. So, Tim, you're up.
Great, Mr. Lee, thank you very much. On tonight's agenda, we have 3 items to discuss with the board, at least bring you off. The first is the Mount St. Joseph County Land Development Application. Recall there is a pending plan for the board pursuant to the municipality's planning board. The board is required to act on that application, which they have, that's that really possible. That time they do expire. So Mount St. Joseph Academy has given us some extension of that obligation until next spring. Our understanding is that the Mount is reconsidering maybe the scope and size of the project. Mike and I actually have a meeting set up on that Tuesday morning. The meeting with the architects, so we had to go out to know that project and the planning submission. But for tonight's Wednesday's agenda, it's really good to accept that extension. Also today on the agenda number.
Sorry, Tim, the walkway that they put in, and that's 100% done, signed off, that's satisfied?
Yes. I think what I hear, being pretty well used. Recent days, but people who drive by say people well to.
There's a minor connection from their sign out to the actual intersection that we did not have them create because there's no crossing there at present, so.
And part of the larger county project.
We're told, we've been told for the last 5 years.
Okay, yes, getting that trail was in, the town was very thankful that the old town. He did that for once. I wasn't required until plan approval, and I put that trail in sooner rather than later.
Great.
Here's another one. Under the agenda is the schoolhouse, the 15 West Pacific. With the primary sleeper right, I recommend. This one, this daycare that occupies the schoolhouse needs additional funds. And so, additional parking spaces are being constructed outside the schoolhouse. That the staff met with planning commission this past week. I think everyone's on board. I think it was concerned the planning commission raised was state access from the school building to the playground. Unless the spaces, there is provisions in place in what we see in the plan. That to describe how that state access is going. And for the waiver of land development, I think that's why we got to involved as quickly as the definition. So, are any questions on the topic?
How do those honeycombs work? Do they get like tamped into the ground and then they sit flush?
Yeah, well, actually, the excavation, the honeycomb is placed on their earth, and then backfilled with soil and so we burn the ball, and I hope it's like we try to run one time. We do know that 5 to 10 years out, but that's sort of the conversion that maintenance issues that we have with the further installations. We can pretty clear about the developers have an obligation to maintain and to monitor so that flammability is lost.
So the applicant is here. Anybody have any questions on that? We're just voting on the waiver.
That's good.
At this point, correct?
I don't necessarily have a
Good
question.
sign.
I would say not a major question on the waiver itself, but obviously this intends that you'll be there for some time and we know the property is, has undergoing, different changes and what have you. Does that, any of that affect your operations and your longevity at that site?
No, let me explain.
You might come to the microphone?
Thank you.
So this, parcel, it wasn't on the whole time?
I could hear. The school,
He gets up again and turn it off.
yeah, I'll turn it off when I leave. So to answer your question, the schoolhouse parcel, by the way, Gil is also with me from the school. He's the director of facilities. The schoolhouse sits on a separate parcel. As you know, that facility serves the community, so all the children that go there are members of the community. They're not part of the group that have traditionally been sent from the city of Philadelphia or other places to Carson that needed, care. So the obligation is that these spaces will be maintained. We think that they will be remain pervious for a long time, and we'll maintain them. They're going to be used only for teachers when they come in the morning and when they leave in the evening. It's not like a shopping center where people are coming and going all the time. So, and we've made some changes to the plan. I know this is a little more than you asked me, but I might as well tell you this. We made some changes in the plan that allowed striping across the driveway to a wood chip trail that leads to the playground. And so there is a direct path that leads from the schoolhouse. I might as well tell you that the children are not let to run out there by themselves. They are led out there by teachers when they go out. They're brought back in, and the driveway across which the walkway will go to be able to get through the parking spaces is blocked in the morning after everyone arrives. There's no through traffic going, so there is really extremely little chance that a car and a child are going to have an interface. And with the teachers there, that doesn't happen. And this has been going on for decades. This is just to provide additional spaces because we have more teachers and staff than we have parking spaces. And they have to park out on the street. They have to make a deal with St. Jen's for the day. They have to park at Starbucks all day. They have to find a way to get to the school. This provides them spaces, and we will maintain the pervious pavement so it continues to infiltrate. And it should actually be better than the existing condition that's there now because there's no stormwater management for that area where the 17 spaces will be. Did I answer your question and more? Okay. Anything else? While I'm here, anything else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for my microphone. Number 14 on your agenda tonight is the Hillcrest Pond. Recall that in recent discussions, the township is going to spend some of the residual ARPA money on the improvement to Cisco Park and Hillcrest Pond in particular. We prepare bid specifications seeking contractors to come in and help dredge that pond for us. We have done this a couple of times. 2 summers ago, we did Mermaid Pond. I think maybe 10 years ago, we had done Hillcrest Pond as well. Interesting bid opening. There are very few contractors who have a lot of experience in pond dredging. Toth Brothers has been the go-to pond contractor for the Delaware Valley for the last probably 50 years now. So we almost expected that Toth Brothers would be our low bidder.
If not our only bidder.
If not our only bidder. I think they were, yeah, exactly. Lo and behold, they were beat by Xavier Landscaping from Pocono Pines, Pennsylvania. Going to their website, they have very little on their website other than landscape design, patios, pergolas, that kind of work. They have just opened about 2 years ago a construction arm of Xavier Landscaping. And so we were very concerned about their ability to take care of our pond in a very present and important part of our community. We did a lot of checking. We called all their references. They got glowing reviews from everyone. I had a heart-to-heart conversation with the owner this afternoon who gave me some comfort. Evidently, they have hired in the last couple of years a construction company foreman who has been dredging ponds in the Poconos for about 10 years. They have purchased all the equipment, the watertight tractor trailer, dumpsters, the long reach excavation equipment, and they are really feeling that they are ready and teed up to do this project for us. Again, it explained the importance of the project, and we gave him every opportunity to take a pass if he felt he underbid. But he was confident that this was his project and he wanted to do it. The bids were not crazy separate. Xavier was $95,000 for the scope of work we provided in the spec. Toth Brothers was $114,000. And then we had a third bidder, Spectra Serve, who was at $350,000. So he was a little bit high.
We're gonna dredge it 3 times?
Right, exactly, Jim. But based upon our research and based upon my conversation with the owner this afternoon, I've got a memo coming out that's drafted but not yet typed. It'll be typed in your hands tomorrow. I'm going to recommend that the board award this pond dredging contract to Xavier Landscaping from Pocono Pines, PA.
If I could just comment, Tim also spoke to me a couple times about this because it's one of those rare things, as you know, the law says it must be rewarded to the lowest responsible. And because there's not a lot of, if any, indication on the website, they've done this kind of stuff before. Tim and I were both a little bit nervous. I said to Tim, call all their references, call the owner, make sure they can do it, make sure they have the right equipment, make sure they know they're going to be very, very visible, and we're going to watch them and see if they still want to do it. And he said that they did. And, if you think about it, if you turn down every single bid from someone who hasn't done work before, they can never start the work, ever. So now maybe there's a little competition in the field.
Yeah.
This gentleman impressed him with the sincerity and the desire to do a good job because he realizes people are going to be watching.
Do we require a completion bond on something like this?
We do,
Okay.
yes.
Now, my recollection is that Croft Brothers did not do it the last time, right? They did it
They
two
did
times
not.
ago?
It was
Or 3 times ago?
They did it 3 times, 3, maybe 4 times ago. The last time was a company out of Delaware.
Right,
The time before that may have been
Jim Kenny,
Jim Kenny.
yeah.
okay.
I don't even know if he does it anymore. He does.
Yeah, he's little province, Eagleville area, yeah.
And then Toth did it the time before that, but Toth did Mermaid Pond.
Last year.
Yes, you're,
Yeah.
yes.
And the
Did a
time.
nice job, yeah. So these guys really haven't, as Xavier, they have not done much, if any, on work.
That's correct, Wilson, yes.
But they have on their staff experienced engineers or operators.
Yep. Yeah, and that was my conversation,
Okay.
It's one thing to purchase the equipment. It's another thing to have the experience level of knowing how to use the equipment to do a clean job. And I guess that was one of the reasons that Xavier hired this individual. Eric, I don't know his last name, but Eric was hired specifically to expand their construction arm of their business, and things like pond
Have
dredging
you
is,
seen Eric's resume?
I have not.
He was the gentleman that was here.
He came to yes, he was here. I did not speak to Eric, but Lonnie and I from my office did speak to Eric on Friday. And Lonnie, he said all the right things, he has the experience, he has the equipment, he's got the support of the business owner to get this done. So
Did they talk about how they're gonna protect the fish, the turtles and all that kind of stuff?
we did, yeah, that's actually in the bid spec. So that obligation is pretty clearly laid out as a scope of work in the bid spec, correct?
And how does the alternative, just describe how that works?
Well, we have in the bid, we have a quantity of 3,000 cubic yards of removal.
Yeah.
We didn't know, we do know what our budget is. And so we based that 3,000 cubic yards of removal based upon our budget and the same unit prices that we saw from Mermaid.
Yes, okay.
Now that we have a lower unit price than what our budget would allow, we could probably take out a little more than 3,000 cubic yards of material from the pond. And we also knew that there were potential other funding sources that may come to light. And so if we had a little extra money, we could then expand that scope of work by a couple extra cubic yards and spend those donations, again, to get a better benefit for the pond for the
But
long
they're
term.
still the lowest on the alternative if they.
They were, right? Yeah.
Okay.
And it was clear in the bid spec that the award was to be based upon the value of the 3,000 cubic yards. And then anything over 3,000 was a unit price. And Xavier's unit price was actually lower than Toth Brothers' unit price as well.
Okay. And did the bid have a start or a range of start times? or-
It didn't. Certainly this is going to be in Q1 2025 is what we expect. So my conversation with the owner today suggested that they're in the Poconos, but he's kind of local. He grew up in Haverford or Yaden, someplace Delaware County. His mom still lives there. He said, they've been getting a lot of snow already in the Poconos and felt that this winter, coming down, working here in Springfield would be a great way to get out of the snow in the Poconos. So it kind of made some sense.
Okay, thanks.
Barring any questions, that is all that I had this evening, guys.
So are we considering that award for Wednesday?
Yep. Yes. Yep.
Great, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
Do we need us any longer?
No, what's next?
I'm interested in the pop. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, great. Just want to poll the audience real quick. I know a lot of you are here with Little League, schoolhouse we already covered. Mermaid, someone's here for Mermaid, right? Yep. Okay. Any other items people are here for? Not already mentioned? All right, great. Then let's do Mermaid. Bring that out and we'll jump in the little. Yep.
Okay, so, present in the audience tonight is, Mr. Kurtz. They own a building in the limited industrial zoning district in the 1100 block of Mermaid Lane. They would like to put up a 24 by 24 metal storage shed in the rear of their property, at 1150 Mermaid Lane. The purpose of the shed is going to be to, house a very expensive piece of equipment that forms standing seam metal roofs. I'd like to get it out of the elements and protect it, along with some other construction equipment that they have. This constitutes a land development pursuant to the municipality's planning code, but the shed is going to be built on existing asphalt paving surfaces. There's no additional stormwater runoff or anything that's going to be created. So they requested and appeared before your planning commission to receive a waiver to the full-blown land development review process. They still need to get all their permits and everything else that's required. The planning commission recommended a waiver.
And that's Wednesday.
That's Wednesday as well.
Yeah, so we can consider this frequently when there's a development matter that's really minor. In this case, probably fits that bill. So just for people's wondering, as Mike said, you still have to get permits, you still have to apply with all the regulations. Just saves a little time and red tape or something. It's not that huge. So we like to always have that go to the planning commission first, then make a recommendation. In this case, they were unanimous on recommending it, so we can vote on it Wednesday. If you want to add anything, you can, or not. If anyone has any questions for the applicant, that would be the time.
Doesn't sound like the board has any questions.
Mike presented pretty much as well as I could, and yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
We'll vote on that Wednesday. Thank you. All right, let's get to your little. Just want to make a quick, just frame it, and then we'll get into the people's comments, so. Since the incidents and revelations May and June of this year, been quite a lot of work done over the last 7 months to remedy some of the issues at King Lake. We know a lot of people with really good intentions and put a lot of work. Since then, say it's a little choppy from a public information standpoint. Because candidly, there's a big deal of open communication that was lacking in some ways. As a result, there's a lot of misunderstanding, confusion. some conflicting information. That took hold of various interested parties. I think that hindered the progress. So we thought it was important to invite the league board members, volunteer committee people, really anybody who wanted to come out to a public venue to kind of clear all that up, give people an opportunity to ask any questions. Ultimately, we want to help move this forward, support a robust and healthy league for our kids, and we just felt a public venue at this point would help rectify any of those obstacles. So we understand the league is holding their annual meeting and new elections for a board this Saturday. And this board hopes to have the land use agreement we will ready to execute the new year as we close a few open loops. And just so you know, the timing on the actual approval, execution of that land use agreement should not be a concern for anyone. We fully expect that to be in place as early as it's ever been. So we'll open up the floor. There's folks here from the Little League Board, and on Seekers too. I want to share their updates, improvements, implementing. That'll be the top priority. We'd love to hear from the community members, and really anybody else. So we're also eager to field any questions. If there's anything that the township has done or said, or I've done or said, any other commissioners, we're open to hearing that, correcting the record as appropriate. So with that, we'll open up the floor. If you do come to the mic, please start with your name and address, and limit your comments, when you're at the mic. So it's part of the record.
Is there anyone here who represents the board, the Little League? No?
What?
I just wonder if there's anyone here who represents the board of the Little League. And, is there anything, I guess, to update us on since the summer? I think you're specifically talking about, committees and the work that the many committees have been doing, right? Jim?
So,
I'm addressing the whole board, and that's required. We invited people on an update.
Separate from the update that we provided before, because since then, the committees are no longer meeting.
An update from the league, where they stand with their efforts, what's been implemented.
That's what I'm saying, separate from the one that we provided when we were last time, or, because since then, the committees have given their final report, so.
Include it all. We just want to hear what's been implemented and what's changed.
And also, just so I know, because there've been, I think, whole meetings without the full board present or the other board members present. What communication has been between members of the board and the league?
Really not much. I would say that I've spoke to a couple here and there throughout the last 6 or 7 months. Carolyn has been to a ton of meetings and has showed up publicly and spoken with the board. She's also the only board member that wasn't board member when May and June happened. So a lot of the information, it's one of the reasons we wanted to bring this out in a public venue to clear up, is that there's a lot of whispering in the lane, and people are left to speculate in the absence of communication. So I have spoken to a number of the committee people. Joe Trautwein I've spoken to, Terry, one of the parents, but a lot of it's, secondhand as it relates to the league board. We did send a letter to Tommy McGee, who's the president of the league, on August 8th, asking for an update, and there wasn't a response, not even really an acknowledgement of receipt of the letter. We did that again for this meeting. We sent November 26th, inviting the board. And Commissioner May followed up specifically asking Tom to respond. He just had it. So fortunately, the president of the organization just hasn't responded. So I don't really know what to make of that, other than we want to be a willing partner in rebuilding the trust in what happened, and leadership of that organization has to be in communication. It doesn't have to be kumbaya, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be open. Even if you're pretend, so that's kind of where we stand. And
And, yeah, I mean, I would add, I mean, I know, you know, there's a lot of individuals in this room who've been working very hard. But, you know, the issue at hand right now is the land use agreement. And a lot of us are in business, own businesses. There's just not an agreement that exists where the opposite party refuses to acknowledge the existence of the other party. We have a president of this organization who presided over a highly troubling situation that became a national news story. And the only thing that we hear is scuttlebutt on the street and a lot of misinformation. You know, just as one example, because, you know, we had the incident that occurred, but then that revealed other cockroaches within the organization. That included some issues around the Bishop Bill. And, you know, we were dealt some half-truths there as to the use of the Bishop building, how it was being accessed, who was controlling the access. And in, you know, the spotlight that got put on there, you know, it came to light that some of the paperwork was not even filed for the use of that building. And so that was brought to the attention of Tommy D. Instead of just addressing the paperwork, which probably could have been resolved by the very next day, that children using that building, 2 months went by where this board was basically accused of taking punitive action against the Little League and denying children access to the building. And it could have been resolved in 2 seconds just by filing paperwork. And so, you know, that's just one instance of a litany that has occurred over the last several months, while the president of the organization, who refuses to step down, continues to just ignore the situation at hand. And we've been painted as people obstructing Little League in this township. And that just really couldn't be further from the truth. I cut short a trip to Chicago to see my son, to be at this meeting, because youth sports is important to me. I've spent 15 years deeply involved in youth sports. I think it is incredibly critical to a township, a community. It's what brings people together under normal circumstances. And so, you know, it was not a big deal for me to cut it short, to be here. But the current president of this organization can't be bothered. Can't be bothered to respond to an email. Can't be bothered to do anything. And so it's just really troubling that we can't take steps forward and have the backs of our children to do something right here. But if anybody cares to, you know, provide some information and clarify something, that'd be great. You know, because if anybody knows why Tom refuses to acknowledge this board and this township, that would be interesting information for me. You know, because there was glaring problems. And instead, you know, it seems to me that, you know, there's several individuals that are walking around like as if they're the victims in this situation. There are victims, and it's not those individuals.
Well, the good news is we know that people are doing good things. We know there's going to be a new election. So I think as frustrating as it's been, a lot of us are very optimistic. Things are going to be better. Doesn't have to be perfect. It could be a little messy, choppy as that were earlier, but we do expect the new board, whoever it is, and it doesn't matter who it is, it's how you act and it's how you speak. So we're excited that we're going to come out of this better. As frustrating as it's been that if there was any information that was wrong, if Tom specifically had beefs, didn't like the way things were going, there was always an opportunity to talk about it, to rectify it, to have open dialogue. And I think it's just a missed opportunity that that didn't occur for all these months. When all these people put a lot of their time and effort in. But it's a missed opportunity. August was pretty brutal. I mean, when everybody came out and joined these committees, I actually was elate. I thought this is going to actually turn into something really positive in the end. And it seems to have stalled out.
I'm wondering for the benefit of the publicist, these meetings are recorded, as we'll go back. Is there the ability to give an outlook on some of the work that was done for folks that might not know much about it?
Sure. So we had four committees. So we had four committees. We had we had governance.
Real quick, just for the benefit of the members and the public at home, 2 hands were raised for present board members, right, in this room. 2 people are here.
Oh, I thought you meant on the Zoom. Yes,
Yes.
Greg and I are both on.
On the Zoom.
Yeah, I thought you meant on the Zoom. Yes,
So that folks know, because they may, I realize they really asked it earlier.
correct. Yes, Greg and I are both current board members. Correct. So there were 4 committees put in place: governance, finance, community engagement, and operations. Those 4 committees were open to the 700 and some families that we have in Springfield Little League. Of those invitations that were sent out via Google Form, we got 41 responses. Parents, old commissioners, old coaches, old, just generally a good group of a mix of people. They each were given kind of subtasks that went along with the committees. So operations was focused on putting a playbook together to hand off to the next group of volunteers so that they knew ordering equipment, things like that. Finance committee was tasked with looking into creating a budget, creating fundraising goals, long-term goals, 5 and 10 years. Brian Sokol was on that board, and Erica Tomasco, who are here, or committee, sorry. We had our community engagement and communications committee, which was tasked with reviewing the website, making updates to communications, ways we communicated, social media, and then what was the 4th? Governance committee. Zach is here. He was on that committee as well. Was tasked with reviewing the bylaws and the Constitution, making any recommendations, as well as looking into like election procedures, things of that nature. Those committees then reported out to the Springfield Little League Board on October 15th via their committee chairs. So each committee chair came to that meeting, provided an overview of the work that was done, the conversations that were had, any recommendations to be made. The board then took those recommendations back to a board meeting to see what we could implement, what would be helpful, successful, and then discussions as to what those committees would look like after the election moving into next year, with some structure, some expectations, kind of what we were looking to get out of them, because I think we put the committees together in a response to what had happened. So the goal was to next year kind of reinvent them and reinvigorate them with a little bit of structure. Hoping that some of those committee members that did do the work this past year would come back and rejoin them. Anything else on the committees? I feel like I talked really fast.
Did the board adopt any of the committee recommendations?
Yes, several of them. From each of the committees, we went back with like the communications and the community engagement, talked about fundraising. We reached out to the local schools to partner with all the social workers to make sure we're engaging any students who couldn't financially participate in Springfield Little League, which we have done in the past, but we wanted to broaden it a little bit to middle school, as well as any equipment they may need, things like that. So I talked to each of the social workers. There were a lot of things from each of the committees that we took out that moving forward, we want to implement in like a larger scale. It was good to have those recommendations coming out of the committee so that we could then see how they fit into kind of the framework.
Are any of those like formally adopted, like via the board's vote?
So we reviewed the one that kind of went to vote was the Constitution and the bylaws. We then made recommendations to Little League. Little League has now, they will be facilitating and running the election due to some outstanding issues that have taken place amongst some of the committees. So they will now be coming down from Williamsport with representatives to run and facilitate the election, and have decided that in order to make sure that the election is run fairly and with as much transparency as possible, we are using the current set of Constitution and bylaws that are in place. They did not feel, Little League, regional, and sectional, did not feel as though they had enough time to make appropriate changes in order to make it an effective election. So those were the 2 that were put in front of the board for a vote. The other recommendations that did come out of the commission or the committees are more so like structural changes that we anticipate making next year, like revamping the website, making sure we have like accurate and as much information as there as possible. Those are things that wouldn't exactly go through like a vote, more so an adoption process in action.
So is it fair to say nothing was formally adopted via a structural change that the board would vote on? Everything is, we like this, we agree to this, we're gonna let the new board.
I don't think there was anything presented in terms of like action items that were necessarily, besides the two I just discussed, that were taken to a vote, but I also don't think there was anything presented that the board said absolutely not. They were very open and very receptive to things that I think, you know, people are excited about because it's going to kind of open us up to growing as a league as opposed to, you know. Sure.
The recommendation we are referencing that was shared from the committee leaders to the board. Was there a way in which the findings and the recommendations were then shared back out to the entire Little League, or is that not?
You mean the Little League as a total? No, that has, so where we kind of got stuck is the election procedure. Little League, since they have decided in order to ensure the fairness and accuracy of the election, asked for a copy of our bylaws and our constitution. Upon reviewing them, they kind of decided that because of what is going on, that they wanted to ensure that they were facilitating the election. And we kind of went back and forth in terms of facilitating it versus running it versus cooperate, you know, we didn't want to give away. So that was kind of the sticking point, but we have, actually Zach did a lot of work, and John Schwartz were two individuals who did a lot of work in terms of like rewriting and working on language. Those are ready to go and will be presented at the annual meeting. Like a part of the annual meeting is reviewing the Constitution and bylaws. And that is an open meeting that has been invited to all members of Little League. Sorry.
They didn't want that.
Correct. We followed the Little League timeline. We actually gave a little bit extra time to provide. There were only 2 deadlines amongst those timings. The first was if you wanted to put your name in for nominations, there's a deadline. And if you wanted to put your name in for voting, there was a deadline. Other than that, it's just an open, we just sent a reminder last week saying, hey, the annual meeting, here's the date, here's the time, we'd love to see you. So that's open. Yeah.
Bylaws and constitution of the league.
They are very standard. There's a little bit of room in terms of like your population, your location, you know, in terms of like, do you want 9 board members? Do you want 7? So there's a little bit of like fluctuation. We wanted to make sure that like going into this next year, we had them tight, Little League had reviewed them, and we presented them like in one foul swoop so that we were really accomplishing that goal and moving forward with what had happened. They're very kind of like skeleton-like, and you can kind of fill in the blanks, but you know, there were some areas that we wanted to make sure addressed our Little League specifically. Yeah.
When you say Little League like that, you mean Williamsburg as opposed to Springfield?
Sorry. Yeah. So Little League International provides us with a structure, and it's literally a copy and paste. Like you can just plug your name in and it will do it. Springfield Little League wanted to make sure that they specifically met the needs of our Little League respectively. We didn't want it, moving forward, I don't want it to just be a copy and paste. If we're going to put the time and the effort in, and Zach and John Schwartz and other members of the governance committee put a lot of time in, we wanted to make sure we reviewed them and really kind of like worked in what could work and what didn't. We had those discussions. I mean, there were probably like 10 or so committee meetings, one, you know, give a few, where that conversation, it was all Constitution and bylaws. So that I think seems to be a focus moving forward and an important one.
You presented to Parks and Rec a couple times now.
Correct. We presented, correct. We have always kept kind of Parks and Rec, and Emily would come back with a couple of changes, and we asked that the anti-bullying language be put in on the first page with kind of a protocol for us as well as Parks and Rec. We went back and forth with them. They then at the November meeting approved that that land use agreement, and I unanimously, I believe, for your review. And I had asked that it be put on the agenda.
Item at Parks and Rec that I may not necessarily agree I have clarity on was whether there is a separate organization called the Springfield Baseball Club that operates potentially independently, potentially as a division of Springfield Little League. I believe at Parks and Rec, and I think one of our Parks and Rec members here can help confirm and see there's they were satisfied in that conversation, hearing Springfield say, that's actually just a division of something housed within the Springfield Little League, so that the Board of Springfield Little League also governs the Springfield Baseball Club. That was the conclusion that I perceived, and I think that's what the Parks and Rec members perceived, and we're fine to acknowledge that without having to put it in paper anywhere. Me personally, I would say, I would just want to be clear if there's separate organizations, whoever we're signing an agreement with, for any situation, should be identified accordingly, right, with their
Which
sub or
I think I
additional-
did write at Parks and Rec. Like, we kind of like walked out, and I actually went home and created that night and sent to Emily like a flow chart of exactly who, because somebody had recommended possibly putting that into the land use agreement as an addendum.
See it in the flow chart, but-
Yeah, so we had identified that it's the same structure as Springfield Little League softball as well. So they have Pride that falls underneath them. You cannot play in Pride, you cannot play in Springfield Baseball Club unless you are an active member of Springfield Little League and Springfield softball.
Yeah, and I think this is really a solicitor question, right? If this is a separate organization that has a separate entity or formation, do we need to have a separate agreement, so on and so forth? I think that's still with solicitor to figure out.
I can speak to that a little bit too, because there are best practices for travel leagues, and I don't think it's set up in Springfield. But can you comment on?
I'm not sure what you mean by like, so in terms, sorry, I had a hockey tournament all weekend, my voice is gone. What do you, in terms of best practices? Like,
How that organization is set up?
okay, so that organization, as well as Springfield Pride, run underneath Springfield Little League Softball and Springfield Little League Baseball. The members of Springfield Little League Baseball and Springfield Little League Softball are the only ones eligible to play for those two clubs. There is a separate director of Springfield Baseball Club, Rich Steele, and then there is a separate board that runs Springfield Little League Baseball. Springfield Little League Baseball is the umbrella that falls under. So what we discussed at Parks and Rec was that if there's a question about facilities, if there's a question about fields or whatever, that facilitates through Springfield Little League Board. Springfield Baseball Club is not at liberty to just make decisions that would then affect Springfield Baseball. It would be vice versa.
Saying Rich Steele was director of Springfield Baseball Club?
Correct. We discussed that at Parks and Rec.
When was he?
Yeah, I would say,
That is not accurate from the Parks and Rec, but you was announced as the leader of.
It's on the flow chart that I sent to,
That flow chart is not at the Parks and Rec meeting.
no, I know.
Flow chart.
No,
It's not.
Emily asked me, hold on.
Well, Rich is here, again, the director of Springfield.
I'm sorry, not Rich Deal. I'm so sorry, I'm not sorry, not Rich Deal. I'm so sorry. I'm so tired. I got home from Lake Placid at about 1 a.m. Scott May. I'm so sorry. Yes, you are correct. Scott May. Thank you, Brian. Sorry, Rich. I know, sorry, thank you, but I appreciate that. Thank you. Scott May, I'm so sorry, is the director of the travel program separately. So he would then facilitate, and Rich Deal is kind of like the in-between, that if there was an issue or there was a conversation to be had, would kind of be the middle ground. Thank you, Brian. I'm sorry.
Is that a new structure, or has Scott May been that position alongside Springfield area the whole time?
So that was kind of done as a recommendation of the committees when there was discussion in terms of like a separate leadership, a separate board, a separate, how that would look. We wanted to kind of get that in place so that we could continue to kind of build out from there.
Wasn't-
Correct.
So the Little League board just ran travels.
I mean, there were individuals kind of who took on leadership roles in terms of scheduling and facilitating and things like that, but no, to designate, no. And that's why we took that, that was actually one of the recommendations, I think, from governance that was discussed.
So there is some variation you can have, but best practices are that they're an entirely separate organization. So I hope and I would encourage that the committees and board going forward would set that up properly and make that a priority. I would be wary of the language of umbrella and under, because it's my understanding that they really should be completely independent organizations.
Does separating them, though, open up to outside? So hold on. So another part of the conversation that we had in Parks and Rec is that we are currently facing an issue with Little League in general, is that Little League now has open boundaries. So if you have a sibling that is 4 to 7, with a 10-year-old brother, a 12-year-old brother, and a 13-year-old brother, that family may now go anywhere within a 50-mile radius. So, and we, as part of the Little League Charter, are now open to having to accept those families. So what we were really hoping as part, like, I understand what you're saying, but in terms of we are navigating that as well. So we may have families coming from Plymouth that now want to play here. So we are currently kind of navigating that situation as well.
The Little League can set it up that they're in control, right? The Little League is gonna be who we sign the most agreement to.
Correct.
And how those rights are extended to the Springfield Baseball Club is really, we'll work that out, but the Little League in-house program is gonna be lost.
Correct.
They're gonna be.
Yes. Yep.
So there's nothing, if you're following this practice, it's not gonna open you up anything you don't want. They should be separate organizations. They should have their completely separate financials, one thing.
Mhm.
They should have their own nonprofit designation. I don't
Which-
think that happens now.
They do. Yeah. They have their own bank account. They have their own 501c3. Yep.
Can you provide that to us? We've had trouble with
Sure. I'll work on that.
that. And typically you have a completely separate board
Mhm.
process. White Marsh, for example, sort of had piecemeal travel for years, but they actually formalized their baseball.
Right.
And their rule, you know what the policy exactly means, their top 5 board members in their Little League cannot be on the board. Of
Right.
Travel program. So arm's length independent, work together. The travel club contributes money to help the
Mhm.
cost of the Little League as for supplies and maintenance,
Yep.
that kind of thing. But they are totally separate. The Little League 100% has deference
Mhm.
and preference. The way Marsh does it is they give their travel club access to their schedule.
Mhm.
And then the travel club has to backfill.
Right. So that's what we have been doing listen, I can't speak to the past, but what I can speak to is right now, that is what we are doing. So we are giving preference to, working with our in-house families. So over the winter, we've worked in conjunction with softball as well to see where their schedules fit and given them a hard deadline in terms of like where they then are no longer. And we're going to preference the in-house program and really those are the steps that we're really taking. And that's why I say, like, when we talk about action items, those are the things that we as a board and volunteers are focusing on moving forward with.
That's great. I mean,
Yeah.
that's gonna solve a lot of problems and the co-mingling of that.
Mhm.
And really probably create a lot of the complaints that we're brewing under about the facility use and his preference and all that
Right.
stuff. So that's encouraging.
And that's also part of like the communications and the community engagement is try to make the website a little more useful in terms of calendars, schedules, when we're in the fields, off the fields, things like that.
So Little League, Big Little League give you a letter of good standing or?
So we are currently under review for revocation and suspension of our charter based on some actions recently from individuals as well as kind of the hullabaloo that has taken place in terms of the land use agreement. So currently we are our charter has not been renewed for next year. I had that meeting today. So we are continuing those conversations with Little League in hopes of presenting them with some really good movement forward so that that's not the next action taken. And that is as of today, I had that conversation.
What?
You said the land is free.
No, go ahead.
They just want to make sure that we're set. Like the representative was going to come tonight and he's like, do you need me there? And I was like, no, we're good. We're gonna have a conversation, So they kind of just want to be able to move forward with baseball and not have these conversations in terms of like, they want to get back to baseball is kind of where they are. Correct. Oh, yeah. But the charter is renewed as of January also.
Not all of our legal schedule, but the long screen. Not the thing that should be still.
No, it should. Just to clarify, the land use agreement as a structure for our Little Leagues is relatively new. There's only been 2 that have ever been signed, and they've both been signed in February. So there's no concern over schedule. Before that, it was just verbal. There's other Little Leagues and townships that have verbal. In fact, the agreement helps that. It gives everyone some level of certainty and clears up some areas. So it's really not about the agreement, it's about trust.
No, I'm just saying on their end, they're just, they would like to get back the focus back to baseball. And on their end, as kind of the overarching entity of us, we answer to them.
I understand. And, you've been instrumental in making that an issue. Whereas the land use agreement, why is it being signed? Can you sign it now? Came September. Really should have proceeded with this, which is,
I didn't ask for it to be signed until Parks and Rec approved it.
no, you and Jim Daly came in our September meeting.
If you go back though, I did not. I have always asked that Parks and Rec, because that's why I always go to Parks and Rec. I have never, the first time
You were at the microphone with Jim Daly.
correct, 100%.
You didn't stop.
Well, I mean, he's a grown adult and I mean, listen, I just want to move forward. And that's why I've reached out to you independently. I've asked to sit down. Like, I just want to move forward with baseball. My ask was that as soon as Parks and Rec unanimously approved it, and the woman, Adrian, the president, she said, we've never suggested something to the Board of Commissioners. And I was like, oh, this is great. I emailed you, like, I just want to move forward with baseball. So that's my intention in terms of putting it on the agenda. I have not asked for it to be on the agenda since that email that I sent you after Parks and Rec.
Are you asking the president of your organization to take steps? I mean, because this failure to engage with this board is.
But I can't control him nor speak for him. I can control and speak for
I'm not speaking for the league. I mean,
and my goal is to move forward
you as a board can take action.
in terms of,
I mean, if your president refuses to take the steps necessary to move everything along and to make Little League pop, can you not take action as a board?
sure. Okay. Well, again, I can't speak for another individual. I can't speak for another grown-up. I can speak for myself. I have been nothing but trying to move this forward since the first time we came here. I mean, I can't speak for anybody else. I mean, Greg is welcome to speak if he would like to. He is also part of the board, but I can only speak for myself, and
My point was the whole conversation was so focused on the land use agreement, which is a minor administration finale to a broader conversation about trust. And even if you say you weren't asking, you were at the microphone with Jim, not telling him to stop. You were a party to it as a
But
representative of the board.
I also believe my last email to you was to sit down in good faith to be able to hash out some of these details and misunderstandings, and have a conversation, and you politely rejected. So,
I rejected meeting you privately.
no, but I'm just saying, like,
I said, I will meet with you with some other people.
right, but my goal has always been to move this league forward. I mean, through action, through word, through, everything. So,
I do want to encourage anyone who has something to say or ask, like, I don't want to dominate it. She spoke more than anyone. But please don't, this is it, like.
Okay, awesome.
And we are moving forward, like, even if, again, it's choppy, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're gonna.
Brian Sokol, 707 Swade Road. I'm a member of the Parks and Recs, and I've been a member of the parent committee, and I'm currently running for a position on the board of Little League that is being voted on Saturday. And I will start off with Carolyn's done an amazing job being a representative of trying to move forward, and I do support everything that she's been trying to do. I do think there's a little bit of a problem, and I can say this as an outsider because I'm not on the board. I haven't been involved that deeply prior to this. I think it would be inaccurate to say, in my opinion, and there are other parents here, that the process of the committees has been a successful one or a transparent one. I think, as Carolyn said, that there are things that have been accomplished. As an outsider in that group, I received nothing that would let me know that anything had been done. I heard it from other people that certain pieces had been, oh, they're looking at this or they're looking at that. But as an outsider, and I say this again with respect, I'm not saying that Caroline's doing anything other than trying to move this forward and be positive. But I think when she comes up and represents the board, who, as you mentioned, has refused to show to any meetings that I've been privy to on Parks and Rec or in meetings that this has come up, the problem is, how can you move anywhere in any direction when there's absolutely no representation except what comes through Caroline? who is a relatively new addition to the board because of a crisis that was created by the existing board. And I think that's where we've had this problem where there's been a little bit of this animosity that's been going on. And I don't know how that gets fixed other than by the election process, hopefully bringing in an entirely new board. Hopefully Carolyn will make it on that board because of her passion for it and new people and new blood to go forward. But I do think I think there's problems with the idea that the SBC is not completely spelled out clear. You mentioned that. And again, as an outsider, I would say, I think that there is a problem if it's not spelled out clearly for this commissioner group, because I think it creates other pitfalls. I do think the new board hopefully will address that unto themselves. But a lot of the information that's come through has just been from Caroline. This is the first, not that I'm on the board, but the fact that Little League is considering revoking or whatever, no one knows that. Greg's on the board and doesn't know that. It's just this lack of communication that's continually happening that creates some problems. Again, I don't know what the solution is, but I hope the committees will continue. I did not know the committees had stopped. I had no idea. I didn't receive an email saying that our committees of the finance had officially stopped. I didn't know our work was complete. I didn't know that there was going to be a new round. And one person can't do it. And I think the problem is that it seems like to me, Carolyn's the one person who's doing it. So for right now, it seems like we're just all grabbing at straws, waiting for her to deliver information. And she's been left out in the lurch by the other people on this board who have either decided to abdicate or have just decided to just say, to hell with it, let somebody else deal with it. But the problem still remains. And I hope that the new people that will go forward with Caroline, with her passion, that we will solve those problems. But I think, we're going to find ourselves here again because the election is now on Saturday at 9:00 in the morning. One email went out to let people know that the election was there. That email did not specify that this is the meeting where we elect people, we go over the bylaws, we go over the new constitution. The email literally just said, here's our open annual meeting being held at a date to come or whatever. But now it says it's at the firehouse at 9 a.m. There's been no follow-up email. There's been no secondary email saying, hey, everybody, if you're passionate about what happened last year and all the stuff that's been going on, come to this meeting. Nothing. It's a single email that would be easily deleted. Again, it's just not, this is why it can't just be one person doing it. And and this is continually snowballing. And I think we'll get to this position again. I hope other people come up and say that I'm wrong, but that's just my take. And I just wanted you guys to know that that's kind of how I see it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joe Troutwine, 17 Aukie Road in Erdenheim. I guess I first got involved in this process when I watched the last meeting in June when I saw two parties talking about what was going on in Little League. And there were two at the opposite ends of the spectrum. I met Curry, who was instrumental in trying to bring the parties together and trying to come up with a solution. We did form these committees. It was a great excitement from the beginning. We had 41 people show up at our initial meeting, a lot of great ideas. The number one thing we talked about in that meeting when we got started was, hey, we're not going to deal with what's happened in the past, whatever that incident was. What we were going to focus on was, hey, can we put together some good plans and policies that the league can follow moving forward? And I hear that word a lot today. We just want to move forward, but you have to move forward in the right way. And so our goal was to put these, the main thing, really what the board could do was look at the Constitution and bylaws, which set out a good policy for the league to follow. And a lot of time and effort was put into that effort. It didn't get passed. There was a decision by the board not to pass it. I can't tell you the exact reason why. There were promises made that it would be passed or it would get done this date, and it didn't get done. One of the reasons was because there was a timing issue that would take 3 months for the Little League International to approve our constitution. Hasn't been that way in our past when we ran the league. Don't know whether that's the same in other little leagues throughout the state, but that was the reason why it was given that it wouldn't be passed. I don't, we're now at this point, right? Where we are, a little bit, less than a week away from the elections. And so our hope is, what I hear everybody saying is, hey, we're going to get a new board in and we're going to move forward. But if you don't have these policies and recommendations that are discussed, that are looked at, that are talked about as to what's wrong, what's not wrong, what's, what we need, we're going to run into the same situation again. But I do think above all of this is just to be open, to have open conversations, to discuss the issues. And we seem to talk about them and then we get stuck. We seem to talk about them a little more and we get stuck. And if that continues, I really have some major concerns for this league. So I'm hoping that come Saturday, we're going to find 9 people that can reasonably sit in a room and discuss things and really look forward to what's going to be a successful season next year. I'm up here as one of the committee members. I don't speak for all of the committee. There's a lot of different views on that committee, but if you guys have any questions about the procedure that took place or anything like that, I'm happy to answer them.
I noted here earlier, I believe Caroline mentioned there were outstanding issues between the committees and the Little League, or between the committee and the Little League. Is that true? Exactly. What would they be? What would be those issues that you encountered?
When you say outstanding issues, I apologize. I'm not sure what the context was.
I heard earlier, there are outstanding issues with Little League, I presume to lead us to this not renewal of charter issue for the Little League. And it said related to the committee. So I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There are things that the committees
Is there an issue going on currently that Little League is looking for?
Are you talking about the alleged breach?
Mhm.
Okay, I can explain that for you. So there were some major concerns about, I think Brian had announced this earlier, that there was an issue about enough people knowing about this meeting, knowing about the elections, knowing about how the election procedures were going to take place, and whether they were going to be eligible to vote. We had put together a policy that everybody should vote. Any member of the league, one family should have a vote. It didn't make its way through the current Little League board.
Recommendation of the board.
I'm sorry?
The recommendation of the committee was that only, and the current board, the board then recommended that all families get a vote. And Little League shut that down.
That's actually not the case. So the recommendation from our we all decided, hey, you know what? Maybe it's better if everybody has a vote.
Right.
And that was the recommendation going forward.
Correct.
I'm sorry, go ahead. What's that?
Correct.
That's also the reason why we chose not to, we all agreed that everyone get their vote.
Yes.
Support, right.
Yep. Yeah. So,
Right.
yeah, absolutely. So
That was not the recommendation of the committee.
correct. But what we had at the end of that was we had committee members there, the board member, we all agreed that everybody should vote. Great. We'll make those edits to the bylaws and the constitutions, which we did. They were told they would be approved that following Monday. They weren't approved. There wasn't a meeting. We asked to be at the meetings. We didn't even know when the meeting occurred. Apparently a meeting did occur. We don't know whether it was approved or not. We heard nothing about the bylaws or the Constitution. We had a meeting with Mr. Lee at my house, and we had conversations with Tom. And Tom said, absolutely, we'll pass them by Friday. We'll pass them. And based on those recommendations, we talked about, okay, great. If the election process goes forward as it is in the bylaws and the Constitution, and you guys come to us and said there will be a land use agreement, the land use agreement would get passed. We heard nothing. We said, okay, we need a couple more days. They'll be passed on Sunday. Heard nothing. Not a word. Nobody talked to us. Nobody communicated to us that says, hey, we're not going to pass them. We're not going to do this. It's not coming on Sunday. And then I'm here telling everybody at the meeting that I was told by the board and members of the board that these things will be passed, and they didn't get passed. And we got to go out to all our committee members and tell them, and they're asking, hey, why didn't it get passed?
So I didn't come to you separately and say, as part of our yearly review, that Little League requested our bylaws and constitution, and they mandated that we follow them for this current year.
You did about a month later.
That was-
About a month later that you came out you told me that. And you said, hey, Little League's now involved. They want to run the election. That was about a month later, but this is all during that time frame. I mean, even just this past week, me and Curry sat down and wrote a nice letter with your assistance. And it says, hey, this is to voting members. This is a letter that's going to go out. Do you remember the letter that me, you, and Curry wrote together? I'll pull it up for you so you can see.
But to the voting members?
Yeah, and it says, and to the, I don't know whether it went out to the whole entire league, but it was intended to. So I wrote you and Tom a text, and I said, hey, here's the letter. You guys are going to send it out today. You guys agreed to send it out that night. I sent out to the committee and I said, hey, here's an advance letter. This is going out later today. No letter goes out. Nobody calls us. Nobody tells us why the letter didn't go out. It was a letter to explain everything, and I'm happy to show it to you.
No, I'm not doubting. I'm just saying, I don't, there's been so many communications. I'm just saying, I don't.
This was recently. This is a week ago between you and Curry. You don't remember that?
No.
Okay. But anyway, this is the kind of process that I've gone through every time. You say, hey, these things would get done. They don't get done. And we don't hear about them. And then we have to answer to the committees and say, hey, we don't know why this isn't getting done. We don't have answers. And any promises that we make, we sort of lose credibility with the committees because everything I tell them that I'm getting from the board is just not working out.
So
But
next
I
question.
think Susie's asking about the specific incident that currently has it under the microscope.
Yeah. So anyway, so let me get back. She wants to talk about this. So let me just tell you this, how this played out. So people weren't getting informed about the election. So there is a spreadsheet. We had asked the board, Caroline and Greg specifically, who are the voting members, so the league could know who the voting members were. Greg had provided us with a spreadsheet with the names, the addresses, and the emails of the people who are voting members. Some of the committee members asked for that list, and we provided them. From that list, an email went out to our community that said, hey, there is an election happening on Saturday. And we know a lot of you have put a lot of time and effort into this league. Please show up. That email got transferred to, I'm not exactly sure what happened to the board, got transferred to some of the members of the board, and they contacted Little League International, and they say that was a data breach. Was there a privacy concern?
They've identified it as a violation of the Little League privacy policy.
The Little League International privacy policy, which I read through, didn't see how it was, publicly available information.
I'm sorry, Little League International.
So when
Yeah,
she
but-
said they, she's saying they, saying it was a violation.
And this is George?
But it was members of the Springfield Little League Board that informed the Little League International of the data breach.
We have to, because members that actually were not voting members were included in that email list. And they reached out to us, they're no longer even part of the league.
And I understand all that. So who on the Little League said that this was a data breach?
Eastern Regional and District,
And who are they? Who are these individuals?
George Davis and Aaron Weber.
So it was George. Okay. So they said it was a data breach. And apparently, I think, assuming from what you're saying, that has now become a reason why the charter for the league is not being renewed.
It's part of the reason that
They
there's,
specifically said that you don't have control over your data And therefore, we're not going to, it's one of the reasons why we're not going
It's a
to.
swirling of issues, yeah.
Okay, I just want to be specific. Did they say that this is part of it?
Correct.
Okay, and what did they say specifically with respect to the data breach?
So you and I can have a conversation, speaking with Ashfield.
I know, and I'm trying to give her
I
some
didn't involve
context.
myself in this. It was handed to me on Saturday.
So,
Okay.
so
I
just to be
So-
clear, I've heard two things for a potential at risk of a renewal of a charter of a Little League, of an organization for Little League.
Yeah.
One being earlier stated, something related to the lack of a potential fear of a lack of existence of a land use agreement.
Yeah.
Which I don't really understand because prior to this year, there wasn't ever one. And so I'm not clear what Little League International requires from that. I'm also hearing a data breach potentially.
Right.
That, the details of which we are fresh, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Both of which, all of which is just a little bit concerning from the standpoint of what is the purpose of this conversation? I mean, we're talking about, as we've said before, we're talking about offering an asset, the privilege of use of an asset to one organization. The organization should be sound. That's, I think, the expectation. And now I have a little bit of question mark that I didn't have before about the soundness, let's say, of an organization that may be feeling a charter that clearly has a lot of flux going on. And I would say that not just from this conversation, but a collective digestion of many conversations over the past 6 months and waiting to digest that, right? I mean, look, lots of people have lots of opinions, that's fine. But what I'm even perceiving in this moment is just a lot of flux. And I'm a little concerned about that. I'm concerned again about the organizational setup and what that is, because we just want to be sure that with whomever we shake our hands with, I mean, as a representative of constituents, it's someone that respects us, we respect them, we are of sound, in a sound engagement of trust to execute on the privileges that we're offering, right? And I think that's the collective experience from my view. I mean, I'm not speaking for anyone else, but from my view as a commissioner, my role with engaging in this conversation at all. And what, repeatedly, I would say I've seen collectively, I wouldn't say any single conversation is expressed one thing or another, that it is very fraught, and that concerns me. Sounds like perhaps through an election, some of this fraughtness will alleviate itself. But if I'm hearing what I heard right now, which is that you may not be chartered as a Little League organization, I guess I have questions too about how fields should be offered by any governing body, any field of any place in the state of Pennsylvania, and how they should be engaged with and to whom. What is that supposed to look like? I imagine for the past 75 years, it was very much I'm a group of folks who play and we do baseball, volunteers, et cetera, and you need to use your fields, and we're a group of folks who love baseball and want you to use it. That was fine. But if we're trying to put pen to paper, I want to be sure that if we are going to do that, that there's trust, there's respect, and so that all of these potential issues, which come up in any place, space, time, organization that ever existed in the history of the world, is going to get resolved. I will say, even listening now, I'm not settled on those questions for my part. Doesn't mean that you're not going to have baseball or any of that. It just means, geez, I'm not sure what the best practice is to proceed. I also don't know all the answers. But that's what I would like to share from
Sure.
a representative as a government official, if you will. I try to wear that hat too often, even though it is the hat I wear. But for the benefit of the public, this isn't just a opportunity to air he said, she said, I'm
Sure.
not sure, et cetera.
Sure, I
I just want to be sure the public understands that position.
Yeah.
Is that fair enough for my colleagues here?
He said, she said stuff, and I apologize for that. And I do have to echo a statement that I think all of us feel is that there is going to be an election on Saturday. We think that this process has yielded some very respectable candidates, people that have shown a lot of interest in this league, a lot of interest in dealing with the trust issues that you mentioned, right? Trying to make it open and transparent. And I do believe that the candidates that are listed are going to do that, right? So that's where I think a lot of this sort of gets washed away. Because the leadership that was the past will be no more. You're going to have candidates that have been part of these committees, candidates that are already currently on the board, and have shown that they have the ability to work together. So I'm hoping that that's what's going to result out of all of this. And once we have that, all of the things that we were talking about, the Constitution, the bylaws, the separation between Springfield Baseball Club and Little League, more clarity about how Springfield Baseball Club is run. I'm hoping that that's what comes out of all of this.
One question.
Yeah.
You were talking about the timing that became an issue for passing the bylaws and the Constitution. Was that the only issue, or was it settled? Like, was it ready to be adopted and agreed upon?
It was ready to be adopted, agreed upon. There were only two issues at the meeting. The one issue was how the elections would run. And that's where they expanded the elections to include everybody. The other issue was sometimes board members, they get either paid or hired to do work. So there was a little more clarity. The committees wanted complete separation. To be honest, as a former board member, there are some times when you have board members who have companies that can actually benefit the league by giving them a lower price. The rule was to change to put a little bit more protections to make sure that that's done in an open and transparent manner. Once those two issues were resolved, they were placed in the Constitution and bylaws, and
So any discussion or anything stopping the current board, the election secretary, so.
Yeah.
Moot point at this point, but could you adopt the new bylaws and Constitution with an effective date as of after the election?
You could, absolutely. I think what happens though, whenever you have a new election, at that election, part of your responsibilities at that election are to adopt a new constitution and bylaws. So that would effectively, it's done annually anyway. Yeah. So that was it. I think the reason why we were given it wasn't passed was because even if we passed it back in September, we were told that Little League would not approve the new constitution in time for the new election in December. Whether that, whether there would have been time, it sort of seems like there would have been time from September to December, but it just didn't happen.
Is there anyone here that represents any opposite opinions that we heard here today? Or that everything's copacetic?
Greg Beidelman, 717 Avondale, Ernheim. I'm part of the current board. Just to add my voice to it, I certainly don't want to seem oppositional by any means because I want to seem like a unified voice, but I don't think I could necessarily, and I think you could agree, we're not a unified voice as a board. And I'm sure, and that's okay, right? Boards are meant to have open dialogues, right? You work together, people have different opinions, you hash it out. You're going to have some issues sometimes. You may not agree with it. You just move on. And it is what it is. I think we're all here to make things better. Obviously, or arguably, it can't be more of a dumpster fire than happened over the summer. I think there's a lot of good things that happened, from all the committee work that has happened over the summer. I think there's a lot of controls that were proposed by all the various committees. Unfortunately, not a whole lot of really, in my opinion, really kind of shook out of the committee work currently. But that's not to say, and I think I'll echo that from, everybody else that has spoken today. I don't think that necessitates that it's not going to happen with the new board that comes on board. I would hope that all of the work that has been done is not going to be lost. We do have a playbook that's ready to go. But that's kind of dependent on a lot of other paperwork, bylaws, constitution work that was kind of in the queue to go. So there was a whole lot of kind of preface on that work and an adoption to occur. I can't say why I wasn't, asked as a board member to be included in some of the conversations that has occurred, since, the spring up until now. It is what it is at this point. But I think at this point, Carolyn's doing a tremendous amount of work trying to take this, over the finish line. Is that necessarily, correct in working in a silo? I would probably say no, but that's not to negate all the hard work and effort and passion and dedication that she's been doing towards the league. So I think, to answer your question, I don't know if I'm oppositional per se. I don't know if my voice has been included as a board member, but to Joe's kind of points earlier, there really hasn't been much dialogue as a collective board, for a few months now. I can't speak to why, some board members want to, answer questions or not answer questions. I personally think it looks rude on our part on a lot of the committee emails that have been going through that no responses are even occurring. So at least on my behalf of the board, I apologize that it has kind of gone kind of unanswered and kind of left in the murk. But yeah, that all being said, I think, the elections are coming up. I was hesitant to put my name back into the ring. Obviously we have this whole other chaos that we want to talk about with the data breach. It's kids baseball here. We're here for freaking kids baseball, and this tit for tat shit just needs to go away. And it just needs to be about the kids and about baseball. And I'm hoping, with a collective board that we can all just work together and just kind of move on, So to me, I feel like there's a lot of positive things going on. This is the first that I'm hearing that, our charter might not be renewed. Hopefully that is not the case. If I'm needed for any of those conversations, please give me a call. But I'm just, I feel confident that with a new board, new folks, new energy, continued committee work, that we can all collectively kind of take this over the finish line and have a great league again.
Right, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
One, I hope I can share your optimism. You never like I said, to make it worse than this. Like, that's always surprised me.
I should have knocked on wood on that one. I should have knocked on wood on that one.
I didn't want to be rude and do this.
I should have knocked on wood.
Let's speak with you.
Hold on.
As a current board member, any restrictions? I mean, were you allowed to run again?
Yes, there was a technical glitch. I pled my case to Little League. They allowed me to run again. So my name's on the board as a candidate.
All the board members able to do that or not?
That I'm not 100% sure of. I think there was some backdoor conversations that some were or not allowed to run. I can't speak fully to all that.
Greg, may I ask, who on your board is currently in charge of communication membership?
I mean, I guess arguably as the secretary, that would be myself. Yeah, no.
Sub-level development.
Yes.
And at the volunteer, you does a good job.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that. I'm just wondering, because one of the primary concerns in June shared in this room was about transparency and communication. I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity for more communication about Saturday's election between now and then.
So what was the question?
I hear there's some concern that it wasn't well communicated to the membership, to the membership. So I was curious if there will be efforts this week to publicize that.
Good question. Where there hasn't been really meetings about how my last email in October through the committee emails was actually proposing meeting to discuss how the elections would occur. Again, to the point of, non-response emails that occurred, even to myself. But again, this isn't to poo-poo on all the things that we currently are. It's really kind of like to move forward. To me, more communication is better than no communication. But again, it's kind of like, am I doing it? Is Carolyn doing it? I'm not sure who's doing it. So, it's, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question.
That for everybody else responsibility that isn't for.
So, I mean, typically what had happened in the past is we would have like, if something were to be pushed out, right? It would come from Tom to say, hey, Greg, we want to make this announcement out, boom, blast this out, right? Sometimes he would send me what that copy would look like. Another fun stuff. So that's kind of like how that kind of worked. And actually, which I really loved about the committee work, and I'm sure Carolyn could agree with, it's a lot of work to do all that. Plus the, Facebook, and Carolyn's been, tackling that, it's a lot, right? So like, the more help you can get with that, in my opinion, is, instrumental. But to your point, could more information go out about, communication? Sure. I mean, I suppose, to question myself, can I put that out on behalf of the board by myself? I suppose I can.
So currently, just to kind of help, Carrie Woodward, who will be working with us, created I'm not sure the official word is, a script, in terms of like every email, the date that needs to be sent out, who it goes to, as a Google Doc. So we have actually been sending those ahead of schedule. Joe and Carrie and I have talked about sending them, like, for instance, if the first one went out on October 29th, we sent it out a week or two early. And that was specifically geared towards like gathering nominations for people that wanted to run, to give people a head start. So kind of to answer your question, it's a copy and paste type.
Coming up on that, because
We don't know.
Oh, I'm so
Sure.
sorry.
Yeah.
I was just trying to help.
I feel bad asking people if you're getting up, but the problem is,
Well, no, and
you might say some good stuff.
No, I mean, I'm sorry, I was just trying to be helpful in terms of the process.
Yes.
Carrie worked out kind of a script, a very like user-friendly script that's copy and pasted into an email. Specifically, like the voting members received X email, the general public received X email, and that was done months ago in preparation to make sure that, I know there was a lot of concern last year that it was not communicated. And again, we can't change the past, but we wanted to make sure moving forward, we were following the 45-day, the 30-day, the 15, the 10, that kind of script.
So not for nothing, just as a listener to hearing other people's concern, it sounds like an additional email.
Couldn't hurt.
Yeah.
It's not gonna hurt, there aren't people with more detail about Saturdays, and something they're very true for people to show up for. So when it's out, and perhaps give indication about the, committee, it sounds like there's really good work happening on the part of the committees that, and the general membership might not be aware of, so if there's an opportunity to share that. Thank you.
I know a lot of that kind of dialogue, that back and forth has been going on between Joe and Carrie, between the community members. They've been kind of like the liaisons.
The committees kind of had like liaisons and then chairs of the committees who then came to like our board meeting and presented their findings. So I hate to use the word umbrella again, but like they were kind of coming to the board and reporting out. So we got to sit down as a board with the 4 chairs of the committees to hear what they had been working on or anything they wanted to present. And that timeline was kind of set out way in the beginning when the committee started. Yeah.
I have questions. It sounds like there was a series of emails that went out, and which would have made it very clear who the voting members are. But that seemed to have heard elsewhere that there's been one email that did not even detail that there was an election going on.
It detailed that there was an election. My point was more of that it was a broad email to the membership, not just the voting body. But that email in itself did not specify what would be like an agenda. Like you might send out, say, this is what's being talked at this meeting, this is the annual meeting you can go to. It didn't provide information that we're talking about the Constitution, the bylaw, the election. It just sort of said the election is happening on this date. But again, I think it goes back to the thing. I don't think it's a malicious thing. I think it just shows that what you have is a lot of cons and things trying to turn with not a lot of help doing it right now. And the fear is that, like I said, but I guess we just have to wait for the election because hopefully those things will go away once you've got new people on board to really help.
Brian, that email has to go to tomorrow, so that's the 5 day.
Great.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to say that while you were speaking, but that email will go out tomorrow with kind of like the agenda, what will be covered. And just kind of reminding people when and where with an address, because I noticed when I did talk, it said Winwood Fire accident, and that's like general information.
Yeah.
And again, moving forward, like these are the things we want to make sure are in place.
But I guess my question would be like, who's, so but no board members other than yourself.
So I believe the document, and I'm not speaking for right, the document, I don't believe was shared with you. Like I don't know what the word is, like when a copy that you make, like,
The template?
I don't know if that was shared with you, but it was shared between, Joe and Terry and I, way back when kind of the process was even taking shape.
Yeah.
And it came as a result of creating the master calendar and the communications. Because we saw kind of like where the deadline fit and we wanted to make sure we were ahead of that instead of playing catch up when the dates were conflict.
I do want to sort of make it so that we are, just because we are missing a lot, that if someone does watch this, they're going to be, here's, that's not in context.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Real quick, two things that made me think of when you said, oh, you said shit, can you keep that out?
It's only internet. We're good.
Oh,
We're not gonna lose our SEC license.
Two things.
You ever watch New Lights?
Well, I said it. Any committee members end up hearing the message here, I would say none of the work, even the board members, nothing's in vain. Like, you make good progress. It is never just a straight line, easy peasy. Like, look at history, like how long things took, like 3 steps back. Not in vain. You're building a good foundation here that might not seem like you're paying off right away, but a lot of it is going to pay off. It's going to be better. So don't think for a minute, any second you put into this was a big. And two, I just reminded me that, again, I just want to acknowledge you, Greg, and you, Caroline, for showing up. Like, that's like, we can disagree about things. If we had more people in the room, we would have made better progress below these 7 months. Like, just showing up is like 90% of the battle. And I'm not just saying because you're here tonight. I know you showed up, other things spoke up. I know you show up all the time. And other people on the board just, disappear completely. So, thank you for that. Anyone else? One thing I just wanted to clarify real quick, because I think over the summer, this created maybe some animosity where people were hearing about the Vice Street facility being closed over the summer. I just want to make it, you kind of touched on some of people, but when we met in June, the June 10th workshop meeting, there was a lot of people in this room. We asked staff just to, hey, we're getting some revelations about this Vice Street use. Let's go back to the paperwork and make sure we know what we're talking about, what was agreed upon. And that's when we discovered there was an oversight that final agreement, that was the final part of use and occupancy, was never executed. So the last part was the Little League was supposed to submit a final agreement memorializing how that building was going to be used. Now, we had already agreed upon it. That was agreed upon way before even it was built. So it was really just administrative, but there was no use and occupancy. So, I mean, thank God a kid didn't get hurt in there at some point where, sometimes the law doesn't care if it's not a big deal. Now, it had the inspections, it was safe, that happened. So really not that big of a deal. So on June 18th, after, a couple days after the meeting, and you looked it up, we informed Tom that, hey, this was never executed. We need to get this set, finalized. Now, you said a day or two, it probably wouldn't have been a day or two. Give him a week we would have to
Would have been
on
2
it.
months, and it would have been all the innuendo that persisted.
Well, a week to put together and we voted in July, it's done, right? But like, the fact that we knew that use and occupancy permit wasn't there, we said, like, you can't use it. I mean, if someone gets hurt in there, everybody's screwed. Like, so it was an easy fix. And the league just didn't respond. They just didn't do it for 2 months. So the part I'm just correcting is there was a lot of talk that the commissioners as an act of retribution or being petty, said, well, you can't use the building now for the entire summer. And that's just not true. And that's kind of where we were trying to build trust at that period, and that was actually sort of reversing that. So it ultimately did get done, end of August, voted on it in September, boom, it was over again. So I just want to clarify, that's sort of a encapsulation of sort of why we as the board were frustrated and felt like the trust wasn't being renewed when we had the opportunity to do that. So for those listening, we did not want to stop baseball. We did not want to stop using that facility. We wanted to use it properly and safely. So anyone has anything else? We're still open. If not, we can wrap it up.
I mean, I would just encourage continued communication and to just increase transparency at all turns. Because in the aftermath, there's still lots of stuff that continue on in the dark. You know, like everyone, kudos to Carolyn for all the work that she's done. You know, Carolyn got installed on the board and made a VP of the board, you know, without Dave laying on. And it could have been absolutely the best decision in the world, but the best thing would have been for it to be in the light of day for everybody to see. And just with all aspects of the league, you know, just hear like that tryouts occur and parents aren't allowed to stick around for tryouts, which again, I've been involved in basketball, baseball, soccer, Gaelic football. My son, you know, I've run the tryouts in little neighborhood soccer, and my son has been evaluated for the national team in soccer. And it all turns, parents are there, these are your children, and they should be allowed to see what's going on. Just, you know, we need more daylight, we need more communication, and we need an organization that we can trust. Because without it, you know, all of our minds, not just these, but in our community, start to assume the worst. And that's the worst thing in the world, when you're working really hard behind the scenes, but because nobody knows what's going on, we start to assume the worst. Because there are a million organizations out there where $200,000 goes missing. And, you know, that, you know, very well is not our organization, but in the absence of that daylight, that's what we start to assume is going on. We start to assume the worst. And, you know, the reality is we had some pretty bad things happen. A lot of retaliation type things going on. You know, like a really pervasive bullying that occurred. You know, that went well beyond, you know, the most public incident that we had. You know, so I just hope that this organization will heal, that we will have a good election, and that we can get some new blood in here too. You know, so we have a great partner here in this township. Because again, I love youth sports. I think it is hypercritical to the community. And, you know, I want to see a thriving Little League that is good for everyone.
And just to put a bow on this in terms of next steps, what to expect. So obviously the league's having their elections, you gotta handle your charter, whatever you can do to ensure that's in good standing. We'll take up the land use agreement in January. When I said there's a couple of groups, we need to get feedback from our solicitor. I think you had it. You had it?
He just got it to me.
All right.
So a lot of grammar.
Yeah, there's a lot of ground.
It's a lot of comments.
All right.
Thank you.
And we can talk about if SBC needs to be part of it or not. We don't care if it doesn't, but that future setup that's independent, you know, is important. We important to handle. But in terms of, we're having baseball, you know, do your signups. There's nothing holding you back from doing everything you need to do to have a great season. The land use agreement will be there. And the only caveat is if the organization, its leaders, not in communication with us, well, you just need to. So, but I'm confident that will happen. So, we'll speak to that.
Let me raise one point. It sounds to me, and I know nothing about this situation at all compared to what all you folks do, but it sounds to me like this election Saturday is pretty important. And I thought I heard you say, Caroline, that Williamsport is gonna
Correct,
be there. Are they gonna be like the referee?
correct. Well, they're gonna be the facilitator.
They're gonna be the facilitator, but
Correct.
also gonna be the person that, or the entity that decides on your charter.
Correct,
So everyone will
Yeah.
really think twice about how they behave on
Correct.
Saturday.
I agree, yeah.
Just a quick question, who from Williamsport is the facility?
George Davis will be there, and I believe he's bringing a representative from Eastern Regional.
Really good impressions.
He has to, you know, he's gonna make sure, but he's
Well,
bringing.
just George Davis is a volunteer as well, right?
Correct. Yep. But I think that's why he's hoping that it's a representative from Eastern Regional Law.
They have a full-size legal department.
Listen, I mean, they have been wonderful in facilitating and supporting, and we want
Yeah,
to,
they're not volunteers.
keep moving in that direction. So I'm glad that they will be there to help facilitate.
Somebody,
One more functional question, sorry. SBC is a separate nonprofit. I just want to be sure I get my facts right, because I want to be clear. They're two separate nonprofits, right?
On my list to gather all that together.
And are there any concerns about the status of the nonprofits? Okay.
Not to my knowledge, yeah.
There's been a lot of talk about keeping those two organizations separate. Doesn't Williamsport require
Correct.
that
And I think,
the players can only come from the Little League?
correct. And I think one of the recommendations that also came from the finance committee was the name, like working on moving forward with that in terms of fixing the name that's on the 501c3. Right, I'm not speaking for you guys, and this is way out of my wheelhouse, but I think that was one of the recommendations also.
It's just bookkeeping.
Right, which we are lucky to have individuals that is, and that was what the committees were put in place for, was to put people in areas they felt comfortable and passionate about.
I understand.
Yeah.
So that the amount of rules and regulations there are for 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds to play baseball is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I do hope that this gets this board out of baseball. It's been
I don't know.
very comfortable having to oversee this process. I don't think that, I think we do it well, and I don't think that, I still.
well, I'll go back to my optimism. We're gonna end up in a much better space than,
I hope.
you know, if it never happened, so.
Everyone's not gonna do it.
Yeah.
Because, if we don't discover that sub-basement hell and get a real charter, then we're gonna have a piece of head. But hopefully that will happen. We'll go to election Saturday, and we'll go.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Small hearings, right?
Sure is. Anybody has any more bows to put on anything? Are we all? Have we bowed everything up?
Well,
Always.
Thing is, the unraveled.
well, that'll still be there. Everyone needs to
Sure. Getting the same.
That's the part.
Have you made enough glue over that horse that we just cut and beat to death?
All right, for 9 o'clock, it's not too bad.
As long
Oh,
as
we got
We've had worse. It's pretty thin.
I think you can get rid of the rest of this.
Yeah, okay.
That you can leave.
Do you have any priorities? Order now? All right, awesome. Thanks, guys, for coming in. You want to stay for the rest? We got some recycling report coming up. Budget, you want to hear about this?
What is this? Quinton Centennial.
250.
All right, here we go. There we go. All right, let's go to the book. Mount St. Joe we covered. That was A.
You're on D.
B we covered. C we covered. Man, look at this. All right, tab D, Historic Commission. 2 members up for expiration of their current terms of service. Who's responsible for checking in with them?
That would be Pete.
Pete?
Yeah.
No word yet? You're gonna have to check in, see if they want to renew?
They're both on your planning commission.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're still interested, yeah.
Okay, we'll turn that.
Sure, yeah.
Vote on that Wednesday, and we're like, yes.
So, go through this, the awards dinner, if you haven't already RSVP'd, please let me know if you expect to see you at the awards dinner.
I'll do it right now.
You can, if you like.
I'll be there.
Jim will be there. Okay.
That's 17th, right?
I'll be there.
Ready,
18th.
Yeah,
I'm there, Jim.
I'm in for the first part, not the second.
Understand what I'm
Anybody not?
Because it doesn't.
What's on the second
I will not.
You won't be able to make it.
You say 17?
Slow down.
18.
You leave at 18.
I know.
Will not read? So we're good.
Will not be there?
get a better office. Who's in charge of the entertainment?
Greg, got a special one that we missed last year. Yeah.
Hey,
A lot of pressure.
last year.
I did.
I thought that's not
Yeah.
legal. I thought that's not legal.
What's that?
His party
The
trips.
entertainment I did?
Yeah, playing last year.
What he did? Okay. Yeah, that's been changed.
Oh, no, that's no thing. I'll talk about that.
That's what I did last.
We're expecting those like regulations to go away, Jim.
No, it changes every year. Changes, you gotta go.
Yeah, I'd like to tap dance list.
Oh,
And a guy who.
John's intro,
Hey, am I red?
he was roasting goats in a hotel room.
I don't remember seeing that. Is that what we're doing?
It was a good one.
All right.
First responders appreciation, just a little note in there that Flower Town sent you a thank you note. Everybody seemed to enjoy themselves. You know, if you could make it, it was a good night. They appreciated it. I did find out after the fact the ambulance was busy. They were out on a couple of calls, so they were just hustling.
I didn't think about that till after we should, people drop, said, here, we should.
Or, yeah, we would have probably taken it over.
Right.
You like to hope that the police
I'd
share.
never be that thoughtful. We're really good.
Or maybe not sending leftovers, probably should have hit him up on, right? One is busy, you know, like a little separate
Can we go
dinner.
ahead and do that?
Call 911, like an emergency, surprise.
Surprise barbecue.
Well, let's go ahead and posthumously, send them a sorry we missed you, meal, some night that was.
Yeah,
That'd be nice.
I would donate that.
Things never.
The Light Up Springfield, social media campaign is going on where people are encouraged to send them photos of their house decorated in, holiday lights. And, we had our first winner this past week. That's off to Jamie DePaul for organizing that and keeping that running. Traffic safety, this is just a recap of last month's discussion where the board had expressed an interest in, number one, returning an officer to the traffic safety unit. We were running somewhat shorthanded for a while Sam Boone was out. He was getting a double knee replacement. He's back on duty. So we're at our full complement now. And as part of the reassignment of the platoons, we're going to reassign another officer to help Sean out with all the traffic issues that we receive all the time. We also made a modification to the police report where each of the 4 sergeants of the squad was asked to summarize their traffic safety efforts for the previous month, which they all did in somewhat of a different form. We're going to try and get them all to report in a consistent manner so that it's a uniform look. Sergeant Whitney seems to have done the best job of all of them in terms of his grade that he did, so maybe we'll follow that. So if we're not on the right track there, just give us some feedback. Doesn't have to be now, let us know. Maybe we can implement that. Traymore Avenue,
Let me just, I think the idea from my perspective was just to be sure that, you know, the concerns of these residents are balanced out with the concerns that the officers have as they're outbound, whatever those are. You guys can have a better, I think, more narrative form. I think that's what, not that I don't appreciate all the great information here. It's great information, but just whatever's going on that's top of mind, there's an increase in texts. We are concerned about traffic and why, and maybe just from the streets, not, so it's not on the chief's head, for example, so that the supervisors have a chance to openly share what their challenges are. I think that would be helpful. It could be rather than necessarily all metrics. I don't want to have to overload them.
yeah, I think
That was
we're trying to convey to you where they're targeting in those locations, so.
I actually not really helpful just in terms of, calls or emails about certain intersections or streets, like I'm from, so I was like, oh, I feel like pulled down that street where I would actually have been on that street for 9 hours. That's pretty significant.
Yeah.
So not that we're reporting back specifics necessarily to neighbors, but to say, hey, did you spend time there? You know, if that is not really helpful, so I appreciate it.
I agree, and same with the radar, like, one started with the
Signs.
radar, that's helped a ton, because so many times folks have said, but I've never seen it here. Well, actually, I went back a few reports, I have seen it.
That may save you some time too. We can look at the,
Same ones like this, or what, how many times here or there?
And just to encourage the supervisors and those who are on their beats to really share, their truth about what their challenges are and helps us get better insight. One other note I just had here also is the 29 officers, this is just for back later, what makes it a full complement of 29 officers? Is it like you must have per police association, et cetera, one in Vermont officer per 1,000 residents, what?
Not necessarily.
What's
When
that?
we say full complement, it's what our full staffing level is that we budget for on an annual basis.
And how long have we had 29?
So when I first started here, we had 28. And we went up to the 29. Now,
You say
a bit of a
20-something now?
27. But also within that, keep in mind that we had self-dispatch and there was an officer that was assigned to the radio group. So now we have 29, but we have them on the street as opposed to one person in the building all the time.
So it was like 28 plus one. That made it.
But in normal times, there's only one squad. Yeah.
One squad on the,
And no one in the building.
No, not at this time of the night, other than when the detectives are rotating shifts, they work, 10 o'clock at night. No, within that 28, there was someone on the desk for each shift. So you picked up not only an additional officer to get to 29, you picked up an additional patrol officer on the street.
Potentially additional officer, et cetera. I just want to set the stage and on understanding.
Well, that, John had made the point for traffic safety, and that's why I went back to the chief and said, when are we gonna get that's third officer in traffic safety, which is now going to occur. Now the Sam's back, when they do the reassignment of all the patrol officers next month, that'll happen. So, Traymore Avenue, they're putting some additional emphasis, both with traffic safety and with the windmill car. Right now, they're not only, doing stepped up enforcement of some of the complaints that we received, but they're also trying to study, what the activities are there and what problems they foresee there. Sergeant Hart is using some, vacation time right now, so, when he gets back, he'll undertake that study, in earnest to give us a recommendation. Towns in Pennybrook, 2 of the 3 main buildings, over on Halls Lane have been removed. The 3rd building, they may have started at this point, but they're working on that. No unusual circumstances. They did find an abandoned fuel oil tank that they removed, and they notified DPP and cleaned up whatever was there. Usually you just have to have the soil tested to be sure there was no leak. They'll close on that property as soon as they receive their NPDES permit, which is the ENS permit that the Conservation District issues. They had some problems with the reviews there. There was a lot of minor technical deficiencies that the Conservation District wanted to see on the plan. They had to sit down and they went over all of those items, and I think they're a form, where they're going to end up getting it. The Conservation District, like many agencies, is just overwhelmed with applications, and if they have 20 days to render a decision, they'll take 20 days to render the decision. And then when they do close on the property, the municipal liens that are on the property for the sidewalk construction and curbing that we did many years ago, will get satisfied. So Andy's looking into that, making sure that we get that. That's going to actually, the buyer brought it to our attention that that'll get settled out of the proceeds of the sale. So wanted to make sure that we got that. The Integrity Avenue Flood Mitigation Project.
There's, in terms of our condemnation and all that, I'm sure the buyers feel new to everything's all clean and.
Yeah, we actually got our own title policy for the grant that we got from the DCNR. We have one as well that we purchased.
Okay.
That's a separate issue. Oh, yeah, sure.
And it's still lien on the properties being sold, so, it's over where it's to show there. It needs to be
That's
satisfied.
all I'm saying. You referenced the condemnation, didn't you?
Yeah, just in,
Well, the condemnation and the sidewalk are two different things.
right.
Okay.
But yes. Integrity Avenue Flood Mitigation Project, just wanted you to know that we got the grant funds in from the Commonwealth Finance Authority, so that reimbursed us $107,500. Now that we have that money in hand, you'll recall that we entered into an additional payment agreement with two of the property owners where we had purchased the stormwater easements at below market value. It was still substantial amount, but we said that if we would get any kind of grant funding, we would agree to pay them the full amount. So it's probably appropriate for us to do that now. Parks and Rec Program Coordinator, just giving you a rundown. We have 18 applications as of the due date of November 22. Craig, Ian, and Emily reviewed the resumes, and they selected 8 candidates, I think, to invite for interview. Some of them have come from as far away as Colorado, some other ones have relocated. And they'll conduct those interviews beginning next week. So we'll have some good candidates there. Police specialist.
Sorry, can you share that, job description?
Yeah.
Awesome. And if you already did, I apologize.
Yeah.
They want to run for the board too?
That's a great response.
Yeah, we were happy with it. Some more qualified than others, but the 8 that they're bringing in have got some good transferable experience in the field. The police specialist, we made a conditional offer of employment to Katie Carr. She goes by. She's currently working as a part-time police specialist in Abington. Very pleasant, very smart, very sharp. They usually have like a 4-month training period before they let her work on her own, and she completed it in a month and a half, and she was able to post for overtime operations and those types of things. So I think that's a good find there. I think they'll all enjoy working with her.
She's part of the bargaining unit.
No, she's actually a salaried employee, non-uniform.
And does she aspire to be a full-time also?
No, I don't think so. Public Works retirements in your folders tonight, you'll have 2 letters from Public Works employees, John Corley, he's one of the refuge truck drivers, and John McClinton, he's one of our highway laborers. John is the guy that you'll see periodically fixing storm sewer inlets and raising the manhole lids and those types of things. He's real creative that way, talented. And John Corley has been with us actually since the 80s. And he's had numerous jobs in there. He's been a refuge laborer, a highway laborer, a refuge driver, a highway driver, backdoor refuge driver. Really good guy, and both of them really good people. And so we're going to lose them early next year. But yeah, wish them well. Their letters are, as I said, in your folder. Nice letters that they wrote. Moving on to another retirement that was a bit unexpected was the fire marshal. Chuck Bailey has notified us that he's going to retire in the spring of 2025. He had some heart issues earlier this year that I guess caused him a little bit of pause, and then I guess the straw that broke the camel's back was Charlie Carrabba, our past Parks and Recreation Director, passed away over the last weekend. And Charlie and Chuck were pretty tight when they were here, close in age. And I guess, seeing that Charlie decided to step up his plans. His original plan was not to retire until he turned 70, which is going to be next December. But he figured he's going to step it up. So we'll start advertising for that position after the first of the year. Right now I have Chuck and Craig reviewing the job description and update it. Make sure, all the certifications we want are in there. Chuck has them all. We'll just make sure that anything that, since Chuck was hired in the late 90s until now, there's been changes, and we'll make sure we update that so that it's reflected in that. So
Does Mark's position get into any kind of code enforcement? Is it during vote?
Mark Pettico, he does the zoning enforcement, and Chuck Bailey does the property maintenance and other abandoned junk vehicle, those types of things. So there is a division there, and though we'd like to do everything as a team, because, you don't want to meet with somebody one-on-one, well, we want to send a team out there so that, there's no he said, she said. Everybody's kind of working together that way. So, and Jim Donifrey, from the highway department, will chip in once in a while, then if somebody's out. So they all work together pretty well in that regard. And then our new business hours, we talked about it last month, and the board didn't seem to have a problem with us starting half an hour earlier than finishing a half an hour later in the day. So after a 2-week notice, and after confirming with all the members that were going to be affected, I gave them the choice: do you want to do it as soon as we give adequate notice, which was a 2-week period, or do you want to go January 1st? Actually, January 2nd, we're off on the 1st. Majority of the people wanted to go on Saturday night today, so we started observing those new hours today. Jamie put a message out on the website and let everybody know that as well. So that's it.
Very good, thank you. All right, Tab, anyone have any concerns or questions on the bill listing?
I just have one observation. Is there any way, some of these descriptions are so truncated, it's very difficult to read them.
Yeah.
So it's.
What page you looking at here?
He's looking at the aqua water bills.
Yeah,
It looks like.
Page 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first one is the Pistol Range, the second one is Pelby Park. The next one is Cisco Park. The wedding. So.
Yeah, I would just.
You more emphasis on the address rather than November 2024.
Yeah,
water service
exactly, yeah, where it is, yeah, so it's clear where it is. Good observation.
Abbreviate some of the other words, right, to make that move over.
Yeah.
All right, Ted, you,
I like thinking that you were going to audit those sites throughout the review process.
On these?
No, Pete.
you're gonna check the aqua meter?
Yeah, always.
Retirement is fun.
Every one of those has to have a backflow preventer on it as well, which is really tedious.
Can't check the meter today, I'll be approved.
No issues with that water meter and the leak issue.
Right, sir?
The rest.
No, the water's off. We turned the water off there to avoid any future problems there. We turned the heater off, turned that off. We had to have the water on because it's boiler. But we turned it all off now.
Rec center's cold.
Well, the rectory, the other facilities still have heat.
Ted G, the schedule for 2025. Do you look for these to see if there's any, conflicts with holidays and whatnot?
So what we'll do with the ones where there are holidays is we will deal with them as they come up and make a special change in the meeting date. Yeah, so the planning commission has election day every year, is a planning commission meeting. We'll put a notice in the paper that cancels that. Okay. Maybe you have to do that.
Yeah, I think Park and Rec this year falls on New Year's Day.
Yeah, and you're not obligated to, only the meetings that are required, which would be your meetings and, the planning commission and the material for the one you have to notify. But, the other ones can be canceled and rescheduled with proper notice. If you cancel it, you cancel it. If you
Yeah,
redo it.
I want to say 1 year, 1 Monday, or something like that, so.
Yeah, well, and this year, your one of your workshop meetings fell on Veterans Day. We were off that day, but we met that evening, so, that's been done. Labor Day is oftentimes a conflict for the board of commissioners, workshop meeting. In those instances, we've either combined meetings on one night on a Wednesday evening, or we met on a Tuesday. And I'll bring it to your attention the month before so we can advertise it properly. Because we can then announce it now that, but nobody's gonna remember it.
Yeah.
Until you're a month out.
Yeah.
But you'll see, we did add, the Walnut Avenue Steering Committee and the Rec Center Advisory Committee this year, because they'll be doing a fair amount of work, but everybody should know that.
All right, and we have our budget hearing and adoption. We do a meeting and a meeting.
You do a meeting, and then you do a public hearing, and then you do a business meeting.
It's so easier than in January of yours.
Oh, way easier than that, yeah, where you're playing musical chairs.
All right, very good. Special meeting to, we just talked about that, that'll be part of our Wednesday meeting to close out the business in 2024 and adopt the budget in 2025. J is executive. K is the zoning board notice, we just have, looks like one piece. Anything about on that?
No, it's actually an unusual, it's an existing flag lot with a home on it. Are we in executive? No, I'm just summarizing the petition. It's existing flag lot with a house that the front yard faces the front, but it's really not a typical front yard in that it's, you know, it's way back on the street. But the front yard encroachment, you know, is still coming up, so they have to bless that.
All right, tab L, we have,
Sorry.
service, expiration coming from two members of the zoning hearing board. We had one in the room on this, we could have asked them over here. Like Dave is here.
Oh, was that him?
Yeah, here.
I didn't recognize him.
Yeah.
Didn't recognize him on his seat. Every time I found him, been in his seat.
So, John, are you checking with that or? Burn that? We will vote on that Wednesday, assuming they're interested in redoing. And Little League Baseball, we covered that. And is the recycling report, anything there to note, Brendan or Mike?
The only thing I will say is that the disposal cost is a estimate right now. We haven't gotten the Republic invoice, so that's subject to change.
Okay. Tab O, we covered the Hillcrest dredging. Tab P, we got a lot of expirations. Two,
Yeah, December's.
also expirations for library advisory committee. We should check with them.
Ed, that's on you.
We met
Give him a buzz.
We met
want me
last
to do
week. We met last week and we were, locked in.
Very good.
Locked and loaded.
And then finally, Q. It's weird that Meredith's birthday is in Q. 215th anniversary, part of the quincentennial celebration, America 50 PA Seafood Beach, Pennsylvania, Nicole. 67 counties to celebrate Pennsylvania's culture and future. So that would be a resolution.
That is a resolution.
To recognize, word,
Wait a minute.
participate,
Quincentennial?
quincentennial,
Semi-quincentennial.
Semi, yeah.
I won't be speaking next year. Will I? No. But it's 250 years, right?
250
Yeah,
years.
500.
I was born in 76, but so that would be.
That's 200.
Could be 5 up.
We'd be fine.
It snuck up on you, didn't it?
Did we add a birthday?
Sure can.
What the hell happened?
Be a good theme.
I turned, oh, God. I'm only 50.
50 is the new 40.
48.
We add his birthday to the resolution, celebrate that.
May 22nd.
What activities
In
are
Ed's case,
anticipated, you know?
So the county's got a whole slew of activities, and I'm convinced with the number of emails I've gotten asking us to pass this resolution, there must be money in it for them from the state to have all the 62 municipalities pass it first. They're probably off with dangling some kind of a prize out there.
First county.
First county to get them all the municipalities to it.
What is there, 62 in Montgomery County?
67.
You can probably represent it all at one time or another.
One time or another. Certainly all the school districts.
You represent them to us?
Susie, they have a number of things planned, everything from, reenactments at Valley Forge Park to.
Is there anything we need to point?
They haven't reached out. It's mostly a county-run effort. They haven't reached out to us. I know, Hope Live is doing something over in White Marsh. But that's like a Friends of, that's a federal organization that, is organizing.
I just think.
So more to come.
Something to.
Yeah.
The country, we may not see.
Okay, that's the book.
That is the book.
That is the agenda. Not bad, consider.
That's the book. Now you did a pretty good job.
Not bad, consider.
It's not as good as Susie did last
We
month.
do have an
but-
executive item. We
9 o'clock.
do have one executive item. Is there any, three people or three executives? Well, before we go to executive, is there any other topics that people want to bring up that are not?
When does the electric, police car come?
I believe it's gonna be here by the end of this week.
Are we gonna have a, public,
It's the truck, right?
Big
Yeah.
rollout,
a rollout?
once we get the flashing lights and everything on it.
Yeah, we should. The EAC should have a big rollout there, I think.
Is that for a second?
It was gonna be for a second. We were gonna supply traffic safety at the wrong lot here.
Yeah, it's Chuck Bailey, it's the representative of the EAC. Want to watch it?
It should be you and Aaron.
Drive through a big ribbon.
Should you be you and Aaron then? We did when we got the hybrids,
Yeah.
so why not, why not brag about we could be the first.
Yeah, Culture Hawkins got some.
Culture Hawkins.
Well, they're empty or is it no bid?
I don't know.
They go over
And Michael, are they continuing to tweak that then Michael, or is it kind of set now?
So we actually received a comment from. I got an email over the weekend. I was copied on one from an individual who said something to Senator Meekland and Brett Nelson's office. And I mentioned it to Ian, and Ian is gonna have Ross check the timing on the lights to make sure the lights are on time and currently operating as they were designed. And then Ross is gonna make some recommendations to PennDOT to see if they'll make some adjustments to them as well. Which is all allow us to do.
It definitely kind of continues in certain times of that, I don't know, if they have the ability to do the ones like
It's definitely certain times.
rush hour, like that Fleischer light by the
Yeah,
Walgreens.
that's the
That's
biggest.
the.
I actually made today, right at 5 o'clock, from Stanton, the lady giant, 6 minutes. Wasn't bad. I know, I do know it gets worse.
Yeah.
But I thought, I actually regretted it. Why am I going up this way?
I just don't stop at the Fleischer one.
Just keep going.
It's not just show me a
Yeah.
commissioner card.
So this
no,
light
right?
out here.
Where does it go?
At certain times of the day, i.e. rush hour, there's a 2.5 minute guaranteed green time for paper mill, just to make sure that paper mill keeps moving. And you have to wait on hold. And if you get stuck behind, and you're going right, and you get stuck behind somebody making a left, you just wait, that's all you're doing. So, point is, there's probably something they can do. It will come at the expense of the side streets. They won't have the green, but maybe we can keep that. They have to. They're trying to find that balance.
Yeah, I mean, it's a few months in as it reveals itself.
Yes, I think it's working well overall.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the overwhelming number of projects are positive. You do get the periodic, I had to sit from Paul's Lane to the shopping center. It took me what seems like forever, like, you would have time it. Oh, not.
And there's no world, I mean, I don't know, world where you can straighten out that bike shirt and polish.
The easiest way to facilitate that would be to buy the the Starbucks, current Starbucks property.
They used to be a friend of us.
And I
They're friendly.
they're planning on moving, right?
We looked at that right there.
Jim gave you that.
I'm sorry?
And that Starbucks is planning on moving, right?
Yes.
That's the little guy.
But should
Across from the
should
road.
theoretically, if anyone in the future, obviously, we don't have money just to go out and do that right now. Future fix for that particular intersection. Something.
If you can find some money from the state and our federal elected representatives to facilitate that.
I think that
I know the state would love to do away with that offset intersection. Because that would greatly improve the flow.
We got any feedback from.
Put us on the
first responders.
So the.
Flowertown isn't.
Yeah. And it's not so much from what I understand, the fire trucks themselves. The people get out of the way of those, it's the volunteers trying to get there, particularly coming from the Halls Lane direction. And, you know, they can normally run, like, the fire trucks will run the center lane, people can get out of the way, come down. But the volunteers coming in their private vehicles, people are getting out of the way, and they don't see the big red thing with flashing lights, so they can't really get around.
We put on some sort of list that should be coming to money to help us with these intersections. I don't know what sort of mechanisms NDOT has for that. Get us on the list, like.
Yeah.
Oh, they're kind of.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, they came out with these dollars, right? So certainly there's a list of
Yeah, they
critical intersections.
This was through a federal grant, highway
Right,
safety
of course.
grant, but yeah.
But particularly that intersection, just maybe give them a nudge again, that would help.
No,
Lots of people.
tell them, right, there's still people who think that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're done with non-executive things. All right, folks, thank you for coming.
You can talk about the business tax matter if you want.
All right, we're going to executive for a tax matter, business tax matter. We will not be coming back to the general meeting, so